Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. As always, I'm Adam Blue, and today we're actually looking at the next episode of Wish from Mercury, episode 6, A Gloomy Song. So, we're curious where this is going to go. I made some predictions last time. I'm going to talk about that as we go through this, but things happen I didn't really expect, but some things happened that I did expect. Yeah, let's just get into it. But before we get started, if you haven't, please check the links in the description for like the Patreon supporting this and that. There's the Discord. There's a bunch of cool stuff if you're interested in that. If you're a fan of Gundam and you want to get involved in the community, yeah, check the links in the description. Bunch of stuff there. But for now, let's get started. Okay, so the opening is with these characters, someone from Pale Technologies and then Solida's mom. So what's cool about this is maybe we're going to get some more story, although I think this was based on when they met in the last episode. But it seems like Solida's mom always had the devil's luck. All right, and as Solida's mom is talking to this lady, we find out that I guess she's carrying on the Vanidus legacy. So you're the one. So this is where prologue, when we had that, the Oxearth Corporation, I forget the name, was, creating the Gundams or whatever that they're not supposed to have. And I guess the Vanidus is part of that or whatever. And so now this is where things are coming together, like characters and story elements a bit further. I mean, when it comes to like the greater scope of this, other than, the school kid stuff, but we get back into the school kid stuff. And so then we get some story here where she says to Lady Prospera, it's no use taking revenge for a 21-year-old. And then she even says, the Gundam pilot, how many have there been? And then he gives her the shocked look. As she walks away, she says, nice to see you after so long. So I guess when it came to the Gundam technologies, and when that was supposed to be banished back during the prologue, and I guess there's been these splinter groups that have been forming and doing things on their own. So, okay, interesting that it opens with this, but I'm still curious about that Gundam Ferric that's shown up the last episode. And I would assume because when the Ariel showed up, they made that a big deal and wanted to say that didn't count, that duel didn't count. They're going to have to say something about this, right? Okay, Isoleta's hanging out with her new friends, and I guess they're just talking about what had happened last episode. They're using the Ouija board again to get some information. Just a little bit more character development going on here. Okay, so because Ghoul lost the duel, he is now old school. No, yeah, I mean, he gets to stay in the school, but he is out. His father is no longer going to support him except to pay the rest of his tuition, but he is banned from the Jet Turk house. And he even, asks his brother, hey, take care of this. But I like how he acts in this. It's like, this is a really cool character, and this scenario makes him even cooler. It's because you almost feel sorry for him that he is actually being kicked out, because even though he's been set up as this antagonist for the character so far, as you see, it's almost like he's forced in these situations, doing the best he can, but he's going up against Gundams no one else has, and he is now having to do that. So it makes it look like he's a loser, but really I guess not only is he actually a good pilot, but I guess in situations where he is, I guess, the winner, he's very, he seems like a jerk, right? But when things are working against him, he keeps his cool. And I like that. We don't know what he's thinking exactly here. Okay, so they're already talking about the duel here. I guess the idea is Elon, or I think it's pronounced with the trill of the tongue, like Aaron, I think with the L, the R. But anyway, I'm just going to say Elon because it's easier for me. Really, this is where Witch from Mercury is starting to break apart for me. As much as I'm liking this, what's about to happen, or what has not been addressed in this episode, I hope gets addressed another way in the future, or that's a big gap for me. And that is the fact that this Gundam Ferric came out in the last episode, destroyed Ghoul, obviously unfair. They had already Solida under scrutiny for the Ariel Gundam, so the fact that they're kind of turning a blind eye to the Ferric, either, I guess that is the storytellers, are they just kind of looking over that, and that's kind of a gap in the storytelling, or could it be that later on we're going to find out that the, I guess the main people in charge anyway, that the Ferric Gundam is part of that, and so they're just as much of hypocrites as anyone. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're going to find out that the school was secretly allowing the Pale Technologies and that Ferric Gundam to operate, even though it's illegal. It's almost like a fail-safe if the Jet Turk House doesn't win. So So again, I'm curious what y'all think about this because that almost makes it where okay, I don't really understand then the world the characters are in because things can change at will depending on what story needs to be told, or is there something deeper than that? So anyway, yeah, let's move on. Hey, always a fan of hanger porn when you can just see the scale of the mobile suits. We've got the Demi Trainer, the Gundam Ariel, obviously, and I mean you can't miss Choo Choo. If you see at the bottom left, you see the the cotton candy. So this is pretty cool here because the part of the duel is that the stipulations are that they're actually going to battle in airspace or in space, so outside the colony asteroid base school area. We're going to see a little bit more of that. It even has boundaries, and it reminds me of what I'm seeing that I'm watching G Gundam, the little boundaries that it has around Earth. What's interesting here is since they're going to be out in space, I guess the aerial was not built for that, which yeah, we've seen with the announcements of the Gunpla having that like booster pack to add on, but it seemed like the aerial was already made for that in some way, just because it seemed like it was such a badass unit and what it's based on from what we saw in the prologue. But anyway, she's asking the new team to kind of help. They've decided, hey, we can build a thruster unit for you, and then they open this old container and it looked like pod racer parts. But no, they're actually going to build a thruster unit for the aerial Gundam. That's pretty cool. Okay, so things get weird here. So I like, it's been a while, me. And he all comes in acting smug. "Oh, I'm the real bad guy here." But it's so weird how they're like, you get this done, you get your face back, we'll get you an ID. Yeah, the other one. So it's like this Ellen guy, a clone. But the way they speak about you get your face back, you chose to do this. It's almost like maybe and you could speculate forever, but people for some reason can be selected or can choose to be part of this Gundam project that is going on behind the scenes and really shouldn't because the school would ban it. Where so he doesn't have to hurt himself. It's like the enhanced version's doing it. I don't really understand. And again, they're not telling us the full story here, but it's very interesting that we're now seeing that we have these enhanced pilots that are based on this Elon series. And again, we don't know if they have the enhancements in order to control the Gundams, but what's the thing with the face? Why? So that'll be interesting when they get into that. And it's pretty depressing. You see the clone or the makeshift fake Elon just like sitting there like he doesn't care about his life. It's pretty crazy. All right, here's the aerial taking a flight the day before, testing out the flight unit. Looks really cool. The colors don't really match with it. And again, this is like something that was built all of a sudden. So I kind of like that in a way. It's almost like this was just kind of like put together. Let's slap together some thruster pack unit, which makes me think, does that mean it will get more of an official one later on? Pretty cool. And then I love the shots inside the cockpit here because, it has like that almost that like 360 panorama thing that is a pretty cool feature with Gundam we see in previous Gundam, but also we have all the effects of all the like hologram things kind of sticking around with all the data and all that. Very cool. Again, I like how funny it is where the aerial head it just goes right in front of the people at the bridge of this site or whatever. But I just like the way that looks because you get a close-up of the eye. It really kind of shows the scale of the Gundam. But it's just also funny because then you hear the voice underneath. It's Soletta. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of goofy. Something I'm just going to point on here because I always like that they do this. But at any time, characters can interact with each other because they're making use of technology that we use every day in that cell phones. I know I talk about that a lot. But I like that they are keeping that in mind in this series so far. At any time, a character would need to tell someone else something via phone, they actually do that, and they don't leave that mystery in the air or that kind of gap in logic where a viewer would be like, well, I would just use my phone. So glad they're keeping up with that. Okay, so then it gets very interesting. This is where Soletta's starting to use her charm a little more, and really she wanted to talk to him before the fight, and she's still figuring out what she wants out of this because he wants the aerial, and she wants to know why he wants the aerial. And then she starts singing Happy Birthday, which seemed kind of goofy, and it is still kind of goofy, but I guess the whole thing is, in the prologue, I guess the birthday is a big deal. When she asked him when his birthday was in the previous episode, he wasn't too happy about that, and it kind of changed things. We're hearing about him having a face, getting an ID. Who knows what's really going on, but this kind of sparks something in him. Kind of an interesting little thing there to do. And just it cuts to black after she's talking to him about the birthday thing, and it's like, you really annoy me. That's why something about annoyance. That's kind of been a theme here. Even Murine's like going on about how much Seletta's annoying, even though she even says she kind of likes that about her. So, all right, here we go. I guess this is the day of the duel. We got some more hanger porn. This is with the flight unit, and I like the little claw arms on the side to kind of hold that stuff in place or put it on there. So cool to get this shot. And then we see the Ferract leave the hangar. It looks great. It kind of retains the Zeta and almost the future Zeta, where you see like the C1 and all that that kind of look to it. Nothing has a Gundam proper look, because if you look at like a GMR RX-78-2 and things that moved forward in the Earth Federation like that, they have that very rigid, like humanoid look to it. So far, what we're seeing with which for Mercury is they're more the extremes on that design, because even the aerial Gundam itself has that slender look. Some proportions are a little exaggerated, almost like the Barbatos in a way. We see this Ferric Gundam that's more similar to like the angular Zetas with all the sharp lines and everything. The Demi Trainer is probably the closest to what I'm speaking of, that humanoid kind of bipedal shape, but it's got that domed head, so far. And I guess there's some other suits that are pretty close to that too that we've seen earlier. But yeah, let's see these in battle. Another cool shot. Always love it when you get great animation cells of the mobile suits. So that was really cool. So they're fighting right now, and the thing about them having to be in the airspace is because the Ferricton's mobility. We saw in the last episode against Ghoul how it was able to just like fly around. So that's kind of the point here, and so they're already getting into it. And I'm a fan of the beam sabers, and I love how the bottom of the arm just like opened up, and the hand totally went down to pick it up and grab it. We kind of see that with some other mobile suits. I was just curious, yeah, about this one. And we even see again Soletta with some beam saber action here shortly. This is a great shot. I might screenshot this as part of the thumbnail, to be honest. And this is where then some character traits are coming out, right? They're supposed to duel just to duel, but he starts talking about how it's unfair that she has everything and is able to pilot a Gundam, whereas he had to be enhanced. He doesn't have anything. Yeah, interesting contrast there. Man, I love some of this animation here. It is excellent. Look at the lighting. I know you could say shading, but lighting specifically, I just, they're really doing a good job here. And then we have the gun bits that are flying, doing some sick stuff that we'll be seeing here. All right, cool shot at the Ferric. Permit score 3. Oh, and all of its bits going on flying. I love the bits on this. You saw from the last episode where it has that laser, and it's like it's in between like these two pods of bits that go flying around. I love that idea. It reminds me of, I think, a movie that did it the best was like, I think the first Resident Evil movie, where weren't they in that room and all those lasers came to the guy and cut them all up? Yeah, so here they go. They kind of come apart. The laser meets, and then they just kind of fly around. And I mean, that is pretty scary to go up against. That really requires new type skills. I mean, it has to. And then so for here, this is that part that's reminding me of G Gundam, because I guess there's kind of like this border around where they're fighting, but they're already passing it. And even that lady we saw from earlier from Pale Technologies that used to be with Vanitas, even she's like, okay, this is bad. Because what's happening is the Ariel's chasing after Elon and his Ferric, and he's having to use as much power as he can from the suit. Ultimately, from what we're learning, is that could potentially kill him. He even made a comment out how that this could be his last fight. Okay, and so he was able to get the Ariel's thruster. So she had the thruster to keep up with him. Now it's destroyed, but we could still see, and this is the main takeaway here, it's like the Ariel didn't even need the thruster pack. It's still holding its own in space. This is a great fight, because they're sitting there flying around while all these lasers are going crazy, but they're purposely going crazy, not just to make it look like there's a lot of action, but because that's what's crazy about the Ferric's bit system. And we can kind of see where the lasers are hitting the aerial Gundam here. Okay, so this is where it's going to get weird. Looks like again, another cool shot. Wait, maybe this should be the thumbnail. But we're seeing that red glow get stronger. I wonder what the reason is for that. Okay, so now the shield bits are going around the aerial. That pretty interesting new functionality we're seeing here out of the Gundam. All right, and then it shot off this sort of spherical burst of energy that's destroying all of the the lasers. So whereas in the last episode, the lasers from the ferret were used to shut down Ghoul's mobile suit, Soletta sort of has a backup defense mechanism that's able to shut down the lasers that would be shutting her down. So Elon and his ferret gets hit by that energy from Soletta, and then he sees this outside his cockpit. And then as he's watching it and it moves, and there's another one, then as it zooms out, you're seeing the bits flying around. So curious if this is more of him and his character kind of going through emotions and he's seeing things, or could it be that Soletta and the Gundam have an ability to manipulate what another pilot could be seeing? I don't know. And so now those bits that Soletta had flying around him are just destroying him. Like when you see this, it just tells me, okay, the aerial was gonna win the whole time anyway. It just Elon and his ferret just being as quick as possible, running around and just immediately throwing out the bits. It just took Soletta to be like, okay, is that what he's doing? All right, I got this. Because really, without her, remember, he destroyed her thruster pack out in space. He chose to be out there, and she's still destroying him. And so, yeah, there's the crew, that watch the duels, and they're like looking at him, and you could see his unit just sitting there destroyed. So, hey, win for Soletta. Okay, and so here's the winner screen. It's showing potentially, I can't really see that well, but is it saying 2 wins? Did it maybe not count one of the previous duels? Maybe I missed something. Okay, yeah, Elon is in his mobile suit just kind of looking out, and then you just see this orb of light, and then it gets bigger. Reminds me of the birthday scene in the prologue. It's almost like it's mimicking that. That might have more meaning later on, or I could just be looking too deep into it. There's nothing there. Look at this. So we see someone with a candle. So this is supposed to be Elon maybe potentially sharing some information of him. That's kind of what Soletta wanted out of the duel. He gets the aerial, she gets more information from him, gets to know him better. So it's not that he didn't have a birthday, it's just life changed, but he remembers what it's like to have a birthday. And then here we go again. Soletta, always the good guy Gundam there. She destroyed him, but she's going out there, wants to learn more about him. She's just a cool person all around, and like invincible, right? Because she's just such a badass in the aerial Gundam since she's had it since birth. She's been able to train her whole life. Another cool shot, not thumbnail this time, but I just like how they do something like this, because this is just the live stream people are watching, and you see the Gundam in the foreground, the background. You see the 2 characters with potentially the sun behind them. Great shot. Okay, so I guess it's the next day. We see Soletta, Myorine sitting on a bench, and they're waiting for Elon because I guess he's going to meet up with Soletta and tell her his story. But time is just passing, and he hasn't shown up yet. So we're getting near the end of the episode, so that is kind of scary. Uh-oh, an enhanced person who can't carry out their orders has no future. What is that supposed to mean? So this is Pale Technologies. And it's just interesting that the group there that we see sitting at the table is almost like making the orders for this lady we met earlier who knew Soletta's mom. So interesting that they even have some sort of segregation for some reason. Do they have different motivations here, or different agendas? Okay, so this gets creepy. Happy Birthday song is playing. We see him in some weird pose. He's almost smiling, but it's almost like his arms are held above him. And then as he's seeing it again with that orb we saw before, the glow from the candle, it's kind of, kind of foreshadowing what was occurring. We now see this thing. Looks like the Death Star laser that's just kind of charging up. And as he's finishing singing Happy Birthday, the laser turns red and decimates him. All right, and that is it for this latest episode of Witch from Mercury. It's interesting because story-wise, it's not going in the direction I thought, but when it comes to characterization, it's starting to show some higher stakes here. We're seeing some death. I mean, it's pretty crazy that in the first place, this dude's an experiment, and he doesn't really like his life in the first place. And now you're getting to the point to where he's just being just discarded because he's of no use anymore. So I'm wondering if we are seeing multiple agendas, and do these multiple agendas have a common goal? And they're coming at it in different ways to maybe hold off the Mercury people? Or could it be that there's the multiple agendas with different outcomes? So Pale Technologies wants to be able to take over any of the other corporations or whatever. Yeah, I guess because if you think about it, Elon would be their main pilot to win for them. So yeah, stakes are getting higher in that aspect. But I still go back to the fact they haven't, and again, this could go to the story, but they didn't mention the fact that the Ferric Gundam destroyed Ghoul in the last duel, and they should have touched on the fact that that wouldn't have been fair. So, or are they just trying to get Ghoul out? Okay, again, I could speculate, and I did it throughout this video. So I'm curious what you guys think. What's actually going on here? Because I feel like this has left me a little more confused than before. We haven't heard much about the main baddie in a while yet. And I forgot his name because it's been a while, but you know, the main guy at the top of the main house. Yeah, that guy. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. What's going on with the story here as it's moving forward? Anything new or interesting? I think that my takeaway from this episode was to be able to see the aerial Gundam really take out what seemed like was going to be a scary mobile suit, but like instantly. The aerial's still powerful, no issues there, but we'll see what happens next time. So anyway, we'll talk later.